My name is Cam Anderson. I'm the owner and sole employee of Blacktail Studio, a small one-man woodworking shop that's kind of turned into a woodworking shop and social media channel, YouTube channel. I'm always trying to learn. I'm trying to get better at woodworking, and when I learn something, I try to share it with others. I wish I could say, I grew up as a 10th generation, craftsman, but I used to be a pilot. I was a helicopter pilot for 10 years, and one of the best things about being a pilot is we have a great schedule. So I worked 7 days on, I worked 7 12-hour shifts, and I had 7 days off. And we moved into a house with a big garage, and I needed something to fill that garage, and I needed something to fill my time. So I started dabbling with woodworking, and it was a pretty slippery slope, and it kind of led to where we are today. Tools and tool brands are different for everybody. I tell people, when you're gonna make that big tool investment, if you're saying, hey, I wanna buy one of the premium, like really, really premium, like when you start moving above things you can find at Home Depot, I tell people to work backwards from the end of the project to the start, because you can build the same table with a cheap circular saw as you can a $1,000 circular saw, but you can't get the same finish with a cheap orbital sander as you can the really nice orbital sander. So I tell people, start at the last thing to touch your project and then kind of work backwards from there. So, an orbital isn't the sexiest tool to buy. It seems like you'll want the track saw and some of those domino joiners, but I think it's a little bit more important to buy that first and then add those other tools later. For me, everything starts around the table saw, because it's also, a workbench, and you can build just a, endless amount of jigs for your table saw. So I have a saw stop. I have about the most expensive one you can get, I think, which I don't think everybody needs the ICS, the industrial cabinet saw that I have. I had the PCS, the kind of step down from there before, and I think that would be perfectly acceptable for even professional shops. So I really, really, really like the saw stop cabinet saw. So that's kind of where I start. One of the tools that I say is my favorite tool that I don't need is these Festool vacuum clamps, which I can show you if you haven't seen those before. They're basically a woodworking suction cup that mounts to a bench. So if I have a big round table, I can put it on the suction cup, sand on it, work on it. If I want to work on the end, it can flip up 90 degrees. The only bad part about this is they discontinued them. So I don't think you can even buy them. If you can, if you want one, you should buy it now, because I actually searched across the US and Canada and I bought an extra that I'm not even using. It's up in my storage, just so if one of mine breaks, I can have a spare, because I like it that much. I think a bandsaw has been a really fun tool. The planer is really nice. That was when I bought my first planer. That was that kind of step of like, oh, now I can actually build some decent projects and some quality, glued up real woodworking projects, because you can do a lot with a jointer and a planer, or even just a planer. As far as tools that I wish I wouldn't have bought or I wouldn't buy again, I tend to do a lot of research. My Festool router, I love a lot of the Festool tools. It's not the only router you'll need to own, which is kind of frustrating, because it's like $600 or $700. So that was one that I was really excited about. And then when I got it, it's well built, it's still Festool, but it just doesn't do everything. And so I was a little disappointed about that. My Bosch miter saw, it's just okay. I replaced my Makita miter saw before, and I kind of like my Makita better still. But there are things about the Bosch that are nice, but for the most part, I try to do my due diligence. The Stanley chisels, there's one for you. I have them up on my wall because they look cool, but they're the worst chisels I've ever owned. You just barely get into a piece of walnut and it feels like the edge just bows over. So don't get the Stanley chisels. The reason why it makes a lot of sense for me and why I have to use a Wagner is because it'll tell the moisture down inside the wood, whereas I still have one that I use for firewood. It's got the little sharp pins on it, and that'll tell you the wood or the moisture content on the surface. And what I found a lot of times is you cut into it and it's way different inside. So the Wagner being able to tell that moisture down inside the wood is just critical for me, and also being able to trust it, because there's other ones out there that claim that, but they don't have the reputation that Wagner does, so you don't know if the reading they're giving you is actually correct or not. I only woodwork in Oregon, so I generally know what the equilibrium moisture is now, but it's a pretty cool feature to be able to tell what the wood needs to be dried to you know, in your living room versus your shop versus wherever. So for me, it stays pretty consistent, but I think it's a pretty cool feature that Wagner added, is that equilibrium moisture content reading to tell the moisture in, say, your shop versus your living room.